Lilian Jarvis, and I was a principal dancer of the National Ballet of Canada, a charter member actually, starting back in 1951. So I go back a long time as far as my dance career goes. Born in Toronto, and which is why I was in the company. And I danced with the National Ballet for 13 years. And when I left the company, I went to New York, and essentially to continue studying ballet. But I happened to, almost by accident, go to a Martha Graham dance performance. And that excited me so much because the kind of movement that they did was so totally, it just used the whole body. It was not get your head in the right position, get your arm in the right position. It reminded me of the Russian dancers. When the Russian dancers first came from Russia and the Bolshoi performed in Toronto, that was in the late 40s, I believe. And they had this incredible movement with a capital M, wonderful passion and expression, and it was unlike the very reserved Margot Fonteyn proper. I mean, she's beautiful, but the English have a reserve to the way they dance, and the comparison, to me at least, when I saw the Russian dancers, was monumental. And the Graham dancers had the same effect on me. And I was so excited. I was down in New York on a Canada Council scholarship. And in those days, ballet dancers thought of modern dancers as being ballet dancers, or dancers who couldn't do ballet. We were very like this about modern dance. It was a little bit too much, but modern dance did not have the name or the reputation that it has these days. And ballet was having a hard enough time being known. Men in ballet were considered sissies or other strange names. And we had a very difficult time getting audiences. We sometimes danced to an audience of 50 people. And dance in itself was just really not on the scene. But coming back to the Graham technique, when I was so excited with this performance that I ended up going to the school, the Martha Graham School in New York, the very next day, and enrolled in classes. And I had a lot of difficulty as a dancer, ballet dancer, because I had what I call a difficult body for the technique. I couldn't do some of the things that I was told to do. I had a sway back, my hip joints were tight, I couldn't get my legs to turn out into that Charlie Chaplin side-to-side thing. And I was just constantly told to do these things. And it was like asking me to open a door backward on its hinges. Doors don't do that. And it's like my body didn't do that. So it was very, very frustrating. It was like this for 20 years. And when I went to the Graham School, they worked in an entirely different way, which I didn't really understand, because they were not just looking in the mirror, making shapes with their bodies. And I didn't understand how they were working. So it really took me a whole year before I understood what the Graham technique was about. And finally, I had a correction, as they're called. You're told to do something in class, and it just opened the top of my head. And I thought, I was told actually to feel my muscles, and nobody had ever told me to feel my muscles before. And we were told in the Graham classes to work for sensation, and I didn't even understand what that meant. Sensation means that you want to experience what the feeling is inside your body. When you're doing an exercise, you're using muscles, and you want to feel those muscles working. A stretch creates a sensation. It's a sensation of stretching. When you contract your muscles, it's a sensation, And so you want to be aware of what your muscles are doing, whether they're stretching, whether they're strengthening, whether there's just a block there, whether your joint is tight, you can't go any further. You're really discovering your insides. You're discovering an inner body. And that was just never brought out in ballet at all. It's coming out now more, I believe. But that was what excited me so much. And I actually left New York finally, went back to Toronto, and I was teaching at the National Ballet School for a year. But I was so obsessed with this idea of feeling the inside of my body that I would get on the floor every day and just start using the Graham exercises and trying to find a way of using a muscle to make something happen that wasn't capable of happening. And this went on for 13 years, literally. I just explored my body day after day. Fortunately, I was married at that point. I had a child, and I was able to stay at home and just continue working by myself. I had no intention of doing anything with it. I had tried teaching in the past, tried teaching ballet, and that just wasn't a fit for me at all. Teaching ballet involves, or teaching class, I guess, of any kind, involves choreography. You have to make up steps for the people in class to do, and my head didn't work that way. I was just always interested in how were you doing the steps, not what were you doing. So the teaching never appealed to me, and I never, in this time of 13 years of just working by myself, I never had the thought ever of actually teaching what I was doing or developing anything out of it. I was simply wanting to get my body to work the way I wanted it to work. And in those days, there was really nothing in the way of yoga anywhere. The odd church basement, somewhere you'd find a yoga class. Pilates, who knew anything about that? I'm talking back in the late 70s, early 80s. I was at the Graham School in the late 60s, so I'm now going on into the 13 years and beyond that. And what was being done in as far as fitness was concerned in those days was aerobics, jogging, all of the sort of activity type sports, everything to do with just using your body. And I started feeling that was just not the way to begin. It was putting cart before the horse as far as I was concerned. And I started actually looking up words like fit. What does fit mean? And fit means to be ready for something. So fitness didn't make sense. You can't get fit if you're doing things where you're supposed to be fit for them, right? And I kept coming back to thinking of using a comparison of a car, that aerobics was like getting into your car and driving it. And they kept saying, it doesn't matter what you do to get fit, just do something that you enjoy. Start slowly and just keep doing it, and you'll gradually get fit. Well, that's like saying get into a car and drive it. As long as you keep driving it, it will keep driving. But that's not true. If you don't do a maintenance program with it, if you don't make sure that all the parts of the car are working properly, at one point, as you're driving down the road, something's going to give out. So I started thinking of developing for myself a system of working my body in a way that made those things that weren't right, the muscles that were weak, strengthening those muscles, the muscles that were tight, trying to loosen them, loosening the parts of my body so that I wasn't just one solid mass of something held all together, which a lot of people are. A lot of people think of their torso as being from their neck to their hip bones. It's just a block, but it moves. The pelvis moves this way, it moves this way. The top moves this way, it moves this way. The body needs to be able to move easily in its separate parts. And the main reason that it's necessary to do that is that the ultimate goal of any fitness program should be postural alignment, because it's only when the body is aligned properly, which means each part of your body is stacked one above the other in a central alignment, so that the weight of the body is carried in the bone structure. It doesn't fall on soft tissue, muscles and ligaments, which causes strain. And then people get injuries because the weight is not supported properly. So the alignment is important to prevent injuries and to prevent sagging that happens. Gravity is always pulling us downward. And if we don't have the muscles that support our body weight holding us up, we constantly pulling down. And when you sag, again, it's like a sagging bridge. There's too much weight, it hangs, and that creates pressure on the muscles, especially in the lower back. That's why so many people have lower back problems, because their upper bodies are not held up. They're dropping constantly into the waist, into the pelvis, into the hips, down into the legs, down through the feet. It's heavy. The body's heavy. And that's not the way to feel good. The body doesn't like that either. It doesn't feel good that way. So getting your body to actually work mechanically well and structurally to hold itself up, supported in a way that it feels light and almost weightless. And you get that feeling by exerting pressure. You get that feeling by exerting pressure downward against the ground, because physics teaches us that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the more you push downward through your body, the more your body goes up. And there's your support. Not lifting from the top of the head with a string, or lifting the chest up, or pulling the shoulders back. Those are, real passé. They're not the way to get your body working properly. So this is what I ended up being so convinced about that I actually started teaching. It was too important to me to let it just disappear into the ethers. It was something that I felt was a help to just anybody who had a body. We all need the same help in getting our bodies to feel good and to be healthy and to work in a way that is a pleasure to live in our bodies. And now with the other bodywork techniques having come into the world, it's getting a great deal easier to get people to listen to this message. Yoga and Pilates certainly have done great things in getting people to step away from all of the frenzied activity kind of thing and really to listen to their bodies and pay attention to how their bodies are working and can they do. So as a result of my conviction that the kind of work that I had been doing with my own body was so important to anybody who has a body, we're all subject to the same strains and tensions and pressures and gravity. So I started trying to teach people what I had been doing on the floor. It was difficult. I didn't know how to explain what I was doing. I felt like I had hot potatoes in my mouth. It was so unlike, I couldn't use the word exercise because exercise meant aerobics and jogging. I wasn't doing exercise. So I gradually, over the years, as I was teaching people, finally had to think about creating a name for what I was doing. And I originally called it biosomatics because what this work did for me personally was to give me a sense of life as I called, percolating through my body. It was a kind of energy that I had never experienced before. And I used the name biosomatics for quite a few years until we then changed the name to Somatic Stretch. And that's good because somatics as a word has come into the English language in a way that a lot of people now are recognizing. Thomas Hanna coined the word back in, I think it was 1976, and it means working from the inside, working the inner body. And so somatic stretch means that there is a lot of stretch involved in the technique, and it is all focused on being aware of the sensations inside your body as you're doing the exercises. The technique goes beyond stretching. It goes into strengthening muscles, but the muscles that we strengthen primarily are the support muscles, the muscles that hold the back straight and supported, the muscles that keep the pelvis straight. And so, as a result of the experience that I had within my own body, working with these very non-exercise type exercises, I gradually developed a technique. It took years, little by little. I didn't even really understand what I was doing myself, but as I started teaching, I was asked questions, and then I would think, and I found I could give an answer. And so I was kind of learning about the technique myself as I was developing it. And gradually, over a number of years, it has now become an actual technique. It has a beginning. It goes through a process. It teaches people from A through the alphabet to Z, kind of how to get in touch with their bodies, how to release tension, how to do a stretch in a way that is really relaxing to your body, how to isolate your muscles so that when you're strengthening them, you can focus all of your energy into just a specific set of muscles so that you're not tying yourself up together when you're strengthening something. It's very specific in how it addresses the body, and in that way, people really learn about their own body. It's a very personal experience. And people often say, I just discovered a muscle I never knew I had. And that's very exciting to me, because that's exactly the process that I had. Finding about yourself bit by bit and learning how to make things work better so that you end up sort of really feeling that you have a body that you're comfortable living in and that feels good to you, and that however old you get, you can basically keep doing the sort of things you would like to do, that you're not limited in your movements and you're not stiffening up because you haven't moved your body in the way that I'm talking about. Walking is great and it's essential and it does good things to the body, but it doesn't help you to work the separate parts of your body. And that's where I feel somatic stretch comes in.